If you knew me, you would know my Father also. He spoke these words while preaching in the temple area near the place where the offerings were put. Yet no one seized him because his time had not yet come.
Thank you. I must admit, I didn't get that lock safety thing. Did anyone else get that? A few of you. I thought that was fantastic. I don't know what that says about you guys or not, but I don't know. That's fantastic that Harmony got that. Yeah, really, really good. So we've got the first slide. I am the light of the world. Yeah, whoever follows me will not walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. Yeah, fantastic words. If you've been a Christian for some time, you would know these words. But what does it actually mean? What is the fact that Jesus is saying, I am the light of the world? Quite a few months ago, we bought an air tent. So we've already got a tent. We go camping as a family quite a lot. And we thought we wanted to have like just a little tent that we could pitch up and just have like a day out. So we bought this air tent, and it has 2 blackout rooms. Now, if you've never gone camping before, one of the issues with camping is obviously the light. When it's summertime, the sun doesn't go down until about 10 o'clock at night and gets up at 3 in the morning. And if you've got kids, it's just horrendous because they stay up late and they get up early, and then it's just rubbish. So they've got these blackout internals. They're like a thermal fabric layer. And the first time we used it, it was quite interesting. So the kids went to sleep, and Lydia and I stayed up a bit late. And it must have been, I don't know, maybe 11 o'clock. We were getting ready to go to bed. And one of them kind of cried out, a bit scared. I was like, oh, I'll go sort it. I get in there, zip it up, and I look inside. And it was dark. It was black. I mean, like, I couldn't even see my hand in front of my face. And because it was so black and dark, I'm trying to feel around for the little nightlight torch they've got. And I don't know if I'm coming or going. It was that dark. It was terrible. I needed a little light to find the light. And that is a true story. That's not, it just fit in perfectly with this, but that is an actual true story. So we come to Genesis. In the beginning, when God created the universe, the land was shapeless and void. There was darkness and emptiness, and God said, let there be light. And there was light. And God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. So most of us know that story. We have heard it probably from day one at school. It's just something that everyone seems to know. But further on in the book of John, we get a counterpoint to this. It says, the people who lived in darkness have seen a great light. And to those living in the shadows of death, a light has dawned. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness does not overcome it. Really good words, really powerful words. My question to you guys is, what does light do? Just shout it out. What does light do? Anyone? Come on, shout it out.
Dispels darkness.
Dispels darkness. What else? Yep. Anything else? Shows up faults. You went straight there, didn't you? Kind of shows all your faults, Anything else? What do you think light does? Reveal. So it shows things. It creates an ability for us to see the pathway. So if you are camping and you're walking at night, and you get the little torch so you know where the toilet is, and you can see where you're going, see where all the pitfalls are. If you're a bit scared, you get the light out, so it shows, it gives us that safety, and it gives that assurance that everything is okay, that the monsters that are hiding in the dark are actually not there. But it also provides growth. As Jane was saying, it provides growth because of the sun rays and sunlight and everything else. But it also helps us to be found. Does anyone know Morse code for SOS? What is it? Yes. Yeah, so 3 dits, 3 dashes, 3 dits. Yeah, so if you're in the middle of nowhere, this is before what 3 words, obviously, and you wanted to be found, you get your torch out and you do your SOS, save our ship. But, as Ali was saying, yes, light also shines on the darkness. Light shines and illuminates the deeds of those who are living in kind of a not-so-right way. The monsters we see are always hiding in the dark, aren't they? They're always just under the bed. They're always just behind the closet door. They're always in that darkened room. But as I said, you add the little nightlight and everything is well. You can see, and it's great. You see, it's interesting that God didn't create the darkness. God created the light. The darkness is created when something comes between the light and something else. And so you get this shadow. And I found that very interesting, that the light is there. It's only when you get between that light and something else that the shadow is created, that the darkness is created. And the darkness looks scary. You see, it's a visual thing for us. It's built into us. The idea of darkness as a domain of the unseen dangers. The predators prowl at night. And so we huddle around that campfire just hoping everything will be fine and everything will be all right. And whether you're a Christian or not, it doesn't matter. Everyone has an inherent fear of darkness to some degree or another. There's a famous story of the teacher asking his students, what is the opposite of heat? And most of the students would all say, and I'm not going to ask you guys to do it just to embarrass anyone, but most of the students said, well, cold is. Cold is the opposite of heat. And of course, the teacher smiled because he knew that's not true. You see, cold can only go, and I almost knew this, but I did get it a little bit wrong, but it shows how, intelligent I am. Cold can only go down to minus 273 degrees centigrade. That's it. That's as cold as it gets. From a quantum level, that's as cold as it will get. That's when everything just freezes over and just kind of... I did sort of go on, you can add a little... Apparently there's other debates on this, but apparently 273 minus, that's it. The quantum level, it all gets frozen. So you add heat to it. So it's not the opposite. You add heat to it. And this is the same with light. You see, darkness is not the opposite of light. At some point, the darkness is there, and light gets added to it, and it becomes brighter and brighter and brighter. And in fact, I was saying to you guys earlier, factually, in certain circumstances, in certain conditions, a lit match can be seen from up to 20 miles away. We have seen this on the ship in the navies, and you can really see something that is miles and miles and miles away. The light tends to shine brighter in the darkness. Now, in our reading, Jesus tells us he's the light of the world, and those who follow him will not walk in darkness. Now, I find this is one of those statements that kind of has a profound assumption that if you're not with Jesus, you're walking in darkness spiritually. I struggled with that, but that is what Jesus is saying. That if you're not walking with him, you are walking in darkness. It's a profound statement. Now, I don't know if all of you believe. Mathematically speaking, there's going to be some here who have a strong, fervent faith, really strong. There'll be some of you here who kind of have a belief, but maybe you have doubts, not necessarily doubts in Jesus, but life is just frustrating sometimes. And so you have concern, you're thinking, is it kind of true, is it not? And then there are those who just think, I like coming here, but it's not for me. But as I discuss this passage, I want each of you to think about something. If God is real, big if, okay? Because in reality, we kind of don't know. We make this decision on ourselves and we have that faith. But if God is real, if everything the Bible says is true, if what Jesus said about light and darkness is valid, then could you not say that logically, if you are not a follower of Jesus, logically, and all this is true, the reason why it doesn't make sense is because of this darkness, is because of this spiritual misconception about what really is going on in the world. I've got 3 slides to show you guys. I'm sure I will be interested to see what some of you think they are. And I'll see if this works. We'll start with the first one. Maybe. Oh, this is, sorry. It helps if I put stuff down. So, the Feast of the Tabernacle. I did get these in reverse, but we'll go back to this one in a minute, Graham. Let's go to the next one. What is that a picture of? Shout it out. Anyone else? So an old lady we've got. Do we have any other young woman? Does anyone see the young woman? Yeah? Is there a laser on this? I don't know. I don't want to touch anything. So you've got sort of I can't even reach. You've got the chin, you've got the eyelashes to the left, the nose, the ear kind of up on this side. Can everyone see that? So you have the young woman, or you've got the older lady. Yeah. There's apparently, from a psychology point of view, there's depending on what you see is. But yeah, there you go. Right, let's go on to the next one. So what do people see? Two people? The vase? Does anyone see the vase? Yeah. Right. One more. You can go to the next one. Who's right? The woman. That is the right. No matter what. It's always. Oh, Steve, bless you. Yeah, so it just depends on where you're at, what position you're in. So in this story, we meet Jesus and a vast multitude of Jews who were gathered in Jerusalem in the Feast of Tabernacle. So this was one of the three major feasts in the Jewish calendar. It was one of the main ceremonies, and the whole idea was the illumination of the temple. Thank you. So this is what it would have looked like. This isn't the actual thing, but that's kind of what we've got. So we've got 4 huge lamps, and they were huge, massive. You needed a ladder to climb up, and on each one there was 4 huge bowls. They're saying something like 30 gallons of oil in each one, so big, a lot. And for the wicks, they used to use the old priest's clothes. So these lamps were lit during the festival, and they were lit at night. And the idea is that it would shine throughout all of Jerusalem, and there would be no darkness anywhere. It was huge. It was quite amazing. Now, Jesus avoided this place, and he avoided the times of coming here because this was around the time when he was being sought after by the Pharisees. They wanted to kill him. They wanted to arrest him. But he chose at this point to go. He ignores them. And this enraged the Pharisees. You know, they didn't like Jesus. Here he was making miracles, telling people that God loved them. And they go to arrest him. You know, you can't have people thinking that they're loved by God. That's just not right. You know, we're in charge. We are the religious leaders. But they're not able to arrest him. And so they get the temple police to go. I love the fact that they've got temple police. I was just thinking, maybe we need to have some temple police around here. But they go, and we read in the previous chapter, then the temple police went back to the chief priests. So they go out to arrest Jesus because he's preaching and he's telling everyone, and there would have been thousands and thousands of people in the temple. And they asked, why did you not arrest him? And the police answered, never has anyone spoken like this. Never has anyone spoken like this. This was their job. This is their responsibility. They risked being sacked or worse by not bringing Jesus back. They couldn't. Jesus spoke in such a way that they were in awe. And so they went back and said, we can't. We've never heard someone speak like this. It was amazing. And so a plan was made. They needed to do something. These Pharisees had enough. And so they bring in, and I'm sure as many of you heard the story, they bring in this woman caught in adultery. And they say to her, you know, according to the law of Moses, she should be stoned. Do you agree with this? And then we get the famous picture of Jesus writing on the sands. No one really knows what he's written. But he hesitates, he stops, he doesn't answer straight away, and they're all saying, this is what the law of Moses says. She was caught. The fact that the husband wasn't caught as well, or the man wasn't caught, that's a whole different story. But she was caught, and she was on her way to be judged. And so they go before Jesus, and they say, you're saying you're one of us. You're saying you have authority. Judge this woman. Our law says she should be stoned to death. Make a decision. The crowd is listening. The crowd is hearing. They are waiting. What is Jesus going to say and do? And he starts writing on the ground. And of course, and then they say again, you need to make a decision. And then those famous words. You who are without sin can cast the first stone. That's it. If you have no sin, go on, cast a stone. Now imagine all of the people, thousands of people, are looking at the religious leaders. And Jesus said, well, if you have no sin, please do what needs to be done. That would have been tough. But they get up and they leave. And of course, Jesus then asks the woman, where are your accusers? Where are those who have condemned you? She says, oh, they've gone. And of course, he says, well, neither do I accuse you. You see, this would have been in the presence of everyone. The crowd would have heard and seen what Jesus was saying. And I can imagine for some who would have had the knowledge of being tried or had instances where they were unjustly gone to court for things. You see, back in those days, if you had money, you could pay off all the leaders and the judges in order to get away with stuff. Not like today, of course. We don't live in that type of world. This would have been significant. It would have been quite serious. Who is this guy that is willing to teach such things? Defy the officials, talk about love and grace and forgiveness. And at that point, the lamps would slowly be dying out. The day was here, and it would have been getting a little bit brighter, a little bit darker from the lights. And of course, Jesus says those words, I am the light of the world. I remove the darkness. In me, there are no shadows. In me, there is a visible path to travel. The first thing God spoke about into existence was light. And the last chapter of the book of Revelation speaks of a new heaven and a new earth where there will be no more night, where they don't need the light of the lamp or the sun, because God is their light. So we have the beginning and the end in which light is there. Many of the prophecies spoke about Jesus, saying, the people who walked in darkness have seen a great light. Shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord has risen upon you. Even the book of John starts off when he's talking about Jesus. In the beginning was a Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. What has come into being in him was life, and the life was the light of all people. The Bible consistently says that where God is, there is light. So everyone there was celebrating. They were remembering all that God had done. So the whole idea of the Feast of Tabernacles was, does everyone remember in Exodus when the pillar of fire by night to help lead the people away? This is what they were celebrating. And so you had this pillar of fire by night, which was God, representation of God. And here Jesus was saying, I am the light. People knew exactly what he was referring to. He was saying he was God. That was a terrible thing. In the Pharisees' eyes, that was horrible. That was horrendous. But that is what he was saying. But he doesn't stop there. He furthers the analogy. Whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but have the light of life. You see, Jesus wanted us to understand that it was more than just acknowledging Jesus was the light. It was accepting that outside of Jesus, there's darkness. Without Jesus, we simply don't see. We live in this perpetual cloud which obscures our vision. Much like those photos that we saw. We each had an interpretation. And when you first saw whatever picture it was, you had in your mind, well, that's what it is. That's what I see. That's what it must be. It is only when someone sort of says, well, what about this? And you go, oh yeah, it could also be this. And all of a sudden it's like this new awareness I never realized. And so now, especially the picture of the woman and the old woman and the girl. I remember seeing that in school. just a few years ago. But I now see, what are you guys laughing at? Every time I see it, I see both instantly because I recognize both. I recognize that it's a portrayal of both things. The famous atheists Charles Darwin, Richard Dawkins, Neil deGrasse Tyson, many of them use scientific advances to declare their belief that there is no God. They refuse to engage in the possibility of a creator God. They see things from their perspective. But then you have the others, C.S. Lewis, Alistair McGrath, Lee Strobel. They use the science to reinforce their belief. You see, the cloud of darkness for them was lifted, and they chose to allow the light of Jesus, the light of the Bible, to come into their life. And when they did, all the things that they were against, because those guys were against, they were atheists at the time. And the more they studied, the more they looked, the more they researched, the more they started to think, could this be a possibility? The more the light started to sink through. And they became the Christians that we know them to be today. And so we end up in this significance truth, and possibly some difficult truth. You see, Jesus is saying he is the light of the world. That means that the world has no other light other than him. It's Jesus or the darkness. There's no third alternative, no other light. It's one of the reasons I think people find Christianity so abrasive. There is no other source of salvation but Jesus. This is what he is saying about himself. I am the light. It's not me and Muhammad, or Buddha, or Brahma, or Socrates, or Donald Trump. I know that might be difficult to hear. It is only Jesus. And this means that if you don't know Jesus, you're walking in darkness. This is hard. It's an if-then conundrum. If you accept Jesus, if you seek him out, then you will understand. You will see. Light will come into you and the darkness will go away. But if you're simply not bothered, then you won't understand. It's a friction in life. At some point, you're going to have to accept that by choosing not to know Jesus, you could very well be missing out on something. That's the reality of it. If all of this is true, and you've chosen not to live this way, you have to accept you could be missing out on something. You could be very well not seeing what all of us who do come and believe see. You see, if we don't believe in a God, then there's not much you can learn from here. But if you're willing, if you're attempting, if you're trying, then who knows where life will lead you. But we have to choose. We choose who we will follow, who will be our captain, who we will commit our time and resources to. And this is why we're looking at these series. See, it does no good for me to sort of say, this is what I think Jesus is like. Jesus said, I am this. He made the reference, he made the analogy, he made the statement. And in this, he is telling us that he is the light. So I don't know if you know Jesus, if you've accepted him in your life. But can you accept that maybe, just maybe, this could all be true? That maybe you could be walking in the proverbial darkness, which hinders us from seeing other things. I mean, do you honestly believe that those of us who are Christians, if you don't know God, do you honestly think that those who come here are lunatics or misguided? I'll grant you, maybe some have lunacy in their lives, but consider those who have doctorates upon doctorates, who are so very well educated, who have researched and strove. Can you honestly say, no, they're just misguided or silly? What made Hugh Latimer tell his comrade, Nicholas Ridley, play the man, Master Ridley, we shall see this day a light that by God's grace in England, as I trust, will never be put out. They spoke this as they walked to be burned at the stake in Cambridge in 1617, something like that. And if you go to Cambridge, I think it's next to King's College, on the footpath, is the stone which says Ridley and a few of the other people that were burned at the stake for believing in this Jesus, for believing in this God. You think Stephen Fry would resolutely stand still and say there is no God as he's being crucified or being burned alive? Or do you think he would say, God help me, save me? What's the worst that can happen? Give it a go. Remember, this is going to be our theme for this year. Give it a go. Read the Bible, listen to some podcasts, ask questions, investigate. What's the worst that can happen? Lee Strobel, for those of you who may know, I was trying to remember what he's written. Does anyone know what he's written? Remember. So Lee Strobel, in the 70s, I don't really have the time, he was a investigator for a newspaper, and his wife got saved. And so he said, I'm going to prove this is false. I'm going to do everything I can. And he spent years researching it, going to Israel, speaking to doctors. He's done more research than probably many theologians. And the closer he got to finding the truth, the more he realized how the truth was not what he thought it was. The truth was this God was real. Jesus was real. And he eventually got saved and wrote a fantastic book. But what's the worst that can happen? What's the worst that can happen? If you do believe, if you are a Christian, if God is in your heart and you're committed, can I remind you that wherever there is darkness in our family, in our friendships, in our community, Christ has come to shed light in those areas. Wherever there is darkness in our nation, in our world, Christ has commanded us to let the light shine before all men, before all people, to use whatever means we have at our disposal to tell people and show people about Jesus, to drive out this darkness. You see, we have a responsibility, much like this. This has a purpose, one purpose only, and that is to create light. There's no other purpose for it. That's what it was designed for. If you've accepted God in your life, you only have one purpose, and that purpose is to tell people about Jesus. That is what you should be doing. We've got to tell people about the light of the world. It's our job to give hope, encouragement, love, and joy. He says that when we accept Him, we become the light. You are the light for the world. A city located on a hill can't be hidden. Neither do you light a lamp and put it under a measuring basket, but on a stand, and it shines to all who are in the house. Let your light shine before men, that they may see your good works and glorify your Father who is in heaven. Don't cover it. That's not what it's designed for. It's designed to let people know. If you have a faith, if you love God, remember what that time was when you got baptized. Remember what the time was when you finally said, okay, God, I accept you. So many others don't know that. And by not telling other people, you are denying them that same peace and joy that you have right now as a Christian. It's not right. That's what we're supposed to be doing. We've got to let people know about the light. You see, outside of Christ, they're living the best they can. I used to say to people, those who don't know Christ, those who are not Christians, don't live in sin. Let me rephrase this, okay? If you're not a Christian, you are not living in sin. Now you're probably thinking, you've gone mad. But they're living a lifestyle that they believe is right. They're living a lifestyle based on what they know. They're living a lifestyle based on their circumstances or their upbringing or what they have seen. You can't say to them, you're living in sin, because they will say, what sin? I'm living the best that I can with what I know. It's up to us to sort of show the light of Jesus. It's up to us to be the Jesus for them, to be the light of the world. Because then when they see and they accept, then that darkness is lifted and they recognize and they understand and they go, I get it. I get it. We need to tell people. When I went into that tent, I couldn't see a thing. And I didn't know if I was going left or right, up or down. I couldn't see. I couldn't see what I needed. The kids were saying, we need the light, we need the torch. Where is it? And I'm going, I can't see it. I can't find it. When I got my head torch out, there it was. The light was visible to everything, and I could see. And I want to finish off with this. This is again from someone else who knew there was no God, convinced there was no God. Then he started to study. The more I study, and the more I teach and engage in dialogue with unbelievers and critics, the more confident I have become in the rock-solid intellectual integrity and truth of Christianity. In fact, I am overwhelmed by the coherence and intricate internal consistency of Christianity. I am awed by the majesty and brilliance, not to mention the power of the Scriptures. You see, you take away the Scriptures and you take away Christ. Take away Christ and you take away life. My conviction is one with that of Luther. The Holy Spirit is not a skeptic, and the assertions he has given us are surer and more certain than sense and life itself. The more these people researched and investigated and looked at, the more they came to understand that this is truth, this is real, and Jesus is that light. I'm going to finish with that. Let's pray. Father God, we just come before you now and considering these candles that we have, help us to be these lights. Help us to share in everything in a comforting and safe way. Help us to be the campfire that creates the warmth and the light that all will be welcome to come in and feel upon it. And so we ask that in your name and your grace and your love. Amen. Amen. I'm going to now hand over